All right, let's talk about those invisible financial forces, the ones that are quietly holding you back. Some are just habits, some are about ego, and a lot of them, they're just old ideas that honestly don't work anymore. The tricky part is they feel totally normal, but they're secretly making your life way harder. So let's dive in and pull back the curtain on these things.
I mean, have you ever felt this? You get a raise, maybe a nice bonus, you have a killer month at work. But when you look at your bank account, you're somehow in the exact same spot. It's like you're on a treadmill, running faster and faster, but not actually moving forward. Well, that feeling? That's your first clue that one of these hidden traps has got you. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we're going to hit the traps of spending and image. Then, we'll get into the traps of pride and growth. And finally, we're going to talk about the ultimate escape, building systems.
All right, first up, the traps of spending and image. Now, these are the ones that are kind of out in the open, right? They're all about how we spend our money and the image we're trying to project. And honestly, this is where so many people get tripped up before they even really get started. So, trap number one is lifestyle inflation. And oh man, this one is an absolute killer. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Every time you get a little more money, your life gets a little bit of an upgrade, right? A nicer car, a better apartment, more dinners out. The problem is that little gap between what you earn and what you actually keep, it just stays tiny. And that gap, that's everything. That's where wealth is born.
And that leads right into our next trap, confusing what's cheap with what's actually valuable. I mean, think about it. Buying the cheap pair of boots that falls apart in one winter isn't saving money, right? You just end up buying them again next year. You're just paying for the same problem over and over again. The real wealth mindset flips the question. It's not what costs less right now. It's what's going to give me the best return on my money over the long haul.
Okay, this one is huge. The difference between looking rich and becoming rich. See, anyone can use debt to look rich for a little while. You borrow money for a fancy car, the newest phone, and yeah, you get some attention. But what you're really doing is stealing from your future self to pay for a little ego boost today. The flip side is using debt for growth, to buy an asset, start a business, something that actually builds your future. One path makes you a slave to payments. The other one? It creates options. It makes you free. And here's a cycle I think we've all been caught in at some point. Emotional spending. You feel stressed, or bored, or just kind of sad. So what do? You buy something. You get that little dopamine hit. For a few minutes, you forget the problem. But here's the kicker. The original problem is still there, waiting for you. And now, you have less money and the same problem. It's a vicious cycle. And you can see how all these things start to feed into each other, right? When you're so focused on looking successful, all the money that could be going into becoming valuable, learning a skill, investing, it just gets burned on appearances. And if your friends are all doing the same thing, if they all have car payments and normalize bad money habits, man, it becomes almost impossible to break out of that cycle. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about spending. Now let's talk about what's going on inside your head. These next traps aren't really about your wallet. They're about your mindset. And honestly, these can stop you in your tracks just as easily.
This one is so common. A lot of people are just too proud to start small. You see the finished product, the successful person, the polished result, and you want to jump straight to that. You don't want to go through the messy, awkward beginner phase. The problem is, if you're too ashamed to take that first clumsy step, you'll just end up waiting forever for a perfect moment that's never going to arrive.
And that really gets to the heart of it. Wealth isn't built with one big, heroic move. It's built with small, modest steps, taken early and taken often. It's the boring, consistent stuff that builds real momentum. It doesn't matter if your first step is impressive. What matters is that you took it.
Okay, here are two more sneaky growth traps. First, staying in the wrong city. Look, there's this old idea that you have to be in a super expensive city to make it. But if that city is draining every last dollar you have, it's not fueling your ambition, it's taxing it. And second, there's not learning high-value skills. Here's the hard truth. You can get better and better at a job, but if the market doesn't value that skill highly, your income is just going to stay stuck. All right, this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. And I really think this is the master key to escaping all the other traps we've talked about. It's a huge shift in thinking, from relying on your feelings to relying on systems. So, after all that, the spending habits, the ego, the mindsets, what's the single biggest trap that keeps people poor? The one thing that holds all of this together?
It's waiting for motivation to strike. Just waiting until you feel like it. Waiting to feel motivated to make a budget, or start investing, or work on that project. This is the ultimate trap, because you're literally handing over control of your future to a random, fleeting emotion. And don't get me wrong, motivation feels incredible. That burst of energy you get when you think, yes, I'm going to change my whole life, it feels powerful. But it's temporary. It's a jolt that fades away the second things get hard, which, by the way, is exactly when you need it the most. You just can't build a solid future on a feeling that comes and goes.
And that's where systems come in. Look at the difference. Motivation is all about asking, do I feel like doing this right now? A system doesn't care how you feel. It's just an automated process. Think about automatically transferring money to your savings the day you get paid. It just happens. Whether you're tired or happy or stressed, it works. It takes the decision and the feeling out of the equation. So, there you have it. The traps that are quietly designed to keep us poor. And the big takeaway is this. The goal isn't to find more motivation. The goal is to build better systems. So I'll just leave you with this question. What is one simple system you can build today that will guarantee you make progress no matter how you feel